Okay, good evening and welcome to the October 16th, 2023 meeting of the Barnstable Planning Board here at Barnstable Town Hall. My name is Steve Robichaud. Barnstable Town Hall, 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Mass. We're in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room, second floor, and it is 7:01 p.m. This meeting has, the meeting notice has been previously filed with the town clerk in accordance with Mass General Law. All application materials may be accessed through the Planning Board website or by contacting Karen Herrand at karen.herrand@town.barnstable.ma.us or calling 508-862-4064. I'll now call the meeting to order and introduce our board members and staff, starting with Matt.
Good evening, Matthew Tague.
And Mary.
Thank you. Good evening, Mary Barry.
And Ray.
Good evening, Ray Sexton.
And Bob.
Good evening, Bob Twist.
Tim.
Good evening, Tim O'Neill.
Michael.
Good evening, Michael Messinas. Good evening, Michael Messinas.
And town staff, Jim.
Good evening, Jim Kupfer, Senior Planner, Planning and Development.
And Karen.
Karen Herron, Planning and Development, Admin Assistant.
And again, my name is Steve Robichaud. Notice of recording: this meeting of October 16th, 2023 is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I will now inquire whether anyone else is recording or plans to record this meeting, and if so, please make your presence known. Seeing none, we will continue to our first section this evening, which is general public comment. This is public comment not related to any of the agenda items this evening. So general public comment, again, not related to an agenda item. If you have public comment, please come forward and make it at this time. Seeing none, we will continue to our first section. We have no A&R plans this evening, so we will continue to our first item, which is a regulatory agreement. And Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regulatory Agreement 2023-02, Dockside Condominiums. Shoestring Properties LLC seeks to enter into a regulatory agreement with the Town of Barnstable to construct 29 condominium units in 2 buildings with associated improvements at 110 School Street and 115 School Street, Hyannis. The applicant seeks waivers from dimensional bulk requirements, including building height and stories, setbacks and lot coverage standards, as well as waivers associated with density, parking design standards and dimensions, lighting, and landscape improvements. Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Tim. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ray. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Public hearing is open. Mr. Kenny, welcome. Attorney Kenny. Attorney Kenny, before you get into it, Jim, do you want to give just a quick synopsis of this item and staff report? Is that okay if Jim does that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Absolutely happy to do so. So as this board likely recalls, this application is a new application. This is Dockside Condominium Residence, 110 School Street and 115 School Street. So before you have a new application for a regulatory agreement. However, this board has done a lot of due diligence on this project specifically in the past. And so if I could just quickly recap, and it's outlined in your staff report, and that staff report is available online under the Planning Board's webpage. But in 2022, our regulatory agreement was open for a project such as this, a Dockside residence at 110 School Street, 115 School Street, in August 8th of 2022. As many of this board may recall, a lot of due diligence went into it. A subcommittee was established with 2 planning board members, 2 town councilors, and a housing committee member that further reviewed the project and provided some recommendations back to this planning board. A site visit was conducted for much of this planning board. Again, I say much of this planning board for the general public. We do have 1 new member, as 1 member has stepped down since the last time. And so a site walk was conducted where a height analysis was done with the applicant providing a crane to the height of the proposed structures. Following this site visit and the recommendations from the subcommittee, this board reconvened. A renotice was made for December 12th, 2022, where additional waivers were added based on changes that were made to the site. or the site plan proposed, excuse me. At the end of that process, in January 23rd, 2023, the planning board reviewed the proposal, closed the hearing, and voted not to recommend. Since that time, the applicant has requested to resubmit. I do want to state for the record that I have reviewed the opportunity to resubmit with our town attorney, and the town attorney agrees that the repetitive petition provision of Mass General Law 48, Section 16 does not apply here, and that Chapter 168, the regulatory agreement ordinance, does not place limits on resubmission to the planning board. So this board can consider this application. It is now before you. You have opened the hearing for a new application, and I'm sure the applicant can go over the proposal in detail. I will note that you do have site plans before you. That has a last revised date of, I believe it's August 30th, in which the updated zoning citations were made. In addition, you have a draft regulatory agreement, which is a requirement of the process for the applicant to provide you a draft regulatory agreement. And in that draft regulatory agreement, the applicant has made the proper updates to, again, the zoning citations due to the fact that the downtown Hyannis zoning initiative was adopted. So happy to answer any other questions the board may have, or I'm happy to wait till after the applicant's proposal as well.
Great, thank you, Jim. Yeah, and the plan is last dated 8/31/2023. We have also received multiple items of correspondence that are part of the record. Any board questions for Jim before we turn to the applicant? Attorney Kenny, take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is John Kenny. I'm an attorney with the law office in Centerville. I come before you tonight representing Shoestring Properties, LLC. Here with me this evening is Stuart Bornstein, the manager, Patrick Nickerson, an attorney in my office, Dale Janap and Mike Nee from Janap Architects, the architects on the project, and Danny Gonzalez from Down Cape Engineering, subbing in for Dan Oshler, who's away on vacation. First, I want to thank you for having this meeting tonight and giving us the opportunity to represent this project to you. I know you voted it down back in March. I'm sure you're all wondering, well, why are you here again? What's changed? Not a lot has changed about the proposed development, but what has changed is the zoning that impacts the proposed development. And as you see, we'll go through it. As we went through and looked at the impact of the old zoning versus the new zoning, I think we go from 33 waiver requests to 19, and the majority of the 19, I don't think we don't need. We kept some parking in there because we felt that parking was an issue before, so the on-street parking, that's something we could do away with and meet the new requirements for parking, but we kept it, which created 3 or 4 different waivers. A couple of things where we're unsure of, like frontage types and exactly how the town is interpreting it, because it's all brand new zoning. So when in doubt, you ask for a waiver, which is what we did. The other thing we looked at was the what could we build under the new zoning? And frankly, we were quite surprised, and I think you will be too, when we show what we can do on this site as of right. It's another housing project. It's more units as of right, with nowhere near the architectural beauty of what we are proposing to you. As you read into the record, Mr. Chairman, the property is at 110 School Street and 115 School Street. The existing conditions, 110 School Street, which was the old site of the Dockside restaurant, that building had about 6,636 square feet, and it's been removed. There were 3 residential apartments. And that 110 School Street is also known as the east parcel on your plans. And the east parcel has 2 curb cuts providing access to and from School Street, and is a parking lot with 33 spaces, a paved parking lot. Minimal landscaping on the site. The parcel at 115 School Street, the west parcel, is a gravel lot. The west parcel has a retaining wall, which was part of an old motel building that was on this site. It's got an undefined curb cut providing access to and from School Street, and there is no landscaping. The proposed development on the east parcel, the retaining walls, parking lot pavement, and surface drainage areas will all be demolished and removed from the site. A new multifamily housing building containing 15 units will be constructed, with the exterior consisting of cement fiber shingles of differing shades of gray with white trim and some stonework. The proposed building would consist of a mixture of 4 two-bedroom condominium units and 11 three-bedroom units. There are multiple porches, patio areas, and a pool with a patio area to be constructed. Underground parking garage with 33 spaces would be constructed under the building, along with 8 parking spaces and a drop-off area at street level. A refuse shed would also be constructed off of School Street. All utilities would be placed underground. New granite curbing and a rebuilt 8-foot wide shared use path would be constructed along the parcel frontage on South Street, and a 5-foot wide sidewalk will be constructed along the parcel frontage on School Street, and then new drainage facilities would be installed. On the west parcel, the old motel retaining foundation wall would be demolished and removed. The subsurface drainage would be demolished and removed, and the overhead wires and pole would be removed. A new multifamily housing building containing 14 units would be constructed, with the exterior consisting of cement fiber shingles of different shades of gray with white trim and stonework. The building would consist of 7 two-bedroom condominium units and 7 three-bedroom condominiums. Multiple porches and patio areas would also be constructed, and an underground parking garage with 27 spaces would be constructed under the building, along with 2 parking spaces and a drop-off area at street level. A refuse shed would also be constructed. And all utilities would be placed underground. New drainage facilities would be installed. The roadway of School Street between the properties would be removed. All utilities placed underground, and a full depth of pavement rebuilt with new gravel and granite curbing with 4 inches of bituminous concrete, and new pavement markings installed to town subdivision specifications as indicated in the plans. Trees and landscape and bollard pedestrian lighting would be installed along the roadway as indicated in the plans, and the intersection of School Street and South Street would be rebuilt in accordance with the Town of Barnstable Department of Public Works mock-ups, entitled Mock-ups to Applicant's Plan, which was submitted to you. I'm going to ask our architects to go through the project and walk you through. I know many of you have seen the video. Some of the people in the audience have not. But part of this development would also result in 6 new affordable housing units at 310 School Street. We're asking to be allowed to put them off-site. 5 of the affordables would be 3 bedrooms, and 1 would be a 1-bedroom unit. The 3-bedroom units, when we met with the representative of the Housing Committee, we were told the greatest need was for 3-bedroom units. So Mr. Bornstein stepped up. He's offered 5, and now he's offering an additional 1 unit, which would be 6, which is 3 more than he's required to offer. It doubles what he's required to offer. The condos, these are condominiums, would be run by a condominium association, subject to the approval of the town attorney's office of the condominium documents. Now I'd like to ask either Mike or Dale to step up and kind of take you through some of the architectural features of this project. You can go right through.
Yeah, Jim?
Just one clarifier for the board and the audience. 310 Barnstable Road is the off-site location for the affordables proposed, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I thought I said that.
Thank you.
310 Barnstable Road, Hyannis.
Thank you, Jim.
Go ahead, Mike.
Is your mic on?
Now it is.
There we go.
Mike
just
Nee with
step into
DNAP
it. Thanks.
Architects. Thank you. John's done a great job of covering a lot of the data on the project. I'll talk a little bit about the architectural aesthetic and massing and general organization of the project. And then I'd like to just kind of run our short presentation movie. It's just a couple minutes long, and it's a very concise, really distillation of all the concepts that we wrestled with on these 2 sites. I'd just like to say that what we are presenting here today is a highly articulated building that really is trying to respond to the aesthetics of Cape Cod and traditional New England vernacular architecture. We are mitigating the massing and scale of the buildings through really a richly decorated exterior, a lot of scale elements, and a lot of conscious step backs of the building to both, again, mitigate the height of the building and also to respond to the neighboring community. Along South Street, we have stepped the building down a full story so that it's, the west parcel will be 44 feet high, and on the east parcel, 47 feet high. Both really like a 3.5-story building there. And then it steps up an additional story at the water for where we have 5 units that project a little bit higher to take advantage of the panoramic views and to really maximize the views of the water on that side. The building is organized so that there's both buildings sit with the on the top of what we call a podium that hides the parking, which is buried beneath the buildings. So no parking other than the drop-off areas are really visible. And they're both highly secure garages that are all access is controlled and monitored with cameras. And that podium allows us to step the buildings back further so that the residential buildings that sit upon that are actually stepped back from the edges of that. So again, it breaks up the massing of the building down at pedestrian level. And furthermore, at South Street, we have set the massing of the buildings quite a bit off the street. You can see it's almost half a lot back from South Street. These units are all large luxury units. On the whole project, there's only 29 of them. And they range in size from 1,700 square feet to approximately 3,700 square feet. They're a mixture of 2- and 3-bedroom units. Each of them are served by a private elevator that goes from the parking level all the way directly to the units. And a lot of security controls around the perimeter as well as within the garage itself and within the interior of the building. There is a total of 8 elevators between the 2 parcels. With that, I'd like to, if we could activate the movie. I'm not sure if you can do that for me. And this movie will give us just a brief description of some of the site factors that were incorporated into the design. Hopefully we'll be able to hear the narration. I also have it on a thumb drive if that's helpful. Okay, great.
Animated virtual walking tour showcases the proposed dockside residences project located in the old.
Can't hear it. Volume.
The proposed building utilizes traditional.
Jack, volume?
Can I turn it, get the volume up?
Oh,
We
yeah.
have a mouse.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah. This is starting us on South Street and kind of walking us on the 2 intersections at South Street and School Street, and then it's going to take us for a little walk down School Street between the proposed parcels.
What is that over the garages? Deck or something?
highest quality, with anticipation of dockside residences becoming a legacy project for the community. The building massing along South Street is intentionally kept low to be consistent with adjacent buildings in the surrounding neighborhood. The southern portion of the building that faces the harbor is one level taller to maximize panoramic views of the water beyond. Traditional gabled roof facades face towards the existing buildings on South Street. At the intersection of South Street and School Street, an open tower element on the east and a dome structure on the west frame the view down South Street towards the harbor beyond. Ample parking is partially concealed beneath the buildings on each parcel. The height of the parking facilities creates a plinth or podium on which the buildings are elevated. The buildings are stepped back from the edges of this podium to maintain a sense of scale, resulting in common and private patio areas. Elevators within the parking garages provide internal direct access to most units. The common patios feature extensive pergolas to provide shade and contribute to a sense of layered transparency on the building facades. Decks and covered porches are provided at each level. The decks, open tower elements, and separation of the building masses, along with decorated surface treatments, enhance the sculptural qualities of the design. Handicapped accessibility to the elevated common patios is accomplished by means of a ramp on the east parcel and a glass enclosed platform lift on the west parcel. The architectural details of the proposed buildings help to connect the project to the existing neighborhood fabric and captures the view of the Hyannis Inner Harbor. The smaller scale design elements provide visual interest on all sides while maintaining an aesthetic traditional residential architecture found on Cape Cod. Holling Management Properties is presenting dockside residences as a privately funded redevelopment of underutilized parcels in the Hyannis Harbor District. Great care has been taken to provide modern coastal living residences based on a contemporary interpretation of traditional architectural forms iconic to Cape Cod.
That really concludes the architectural presentation of this portion, but if there's any other, if the board has any questions, I could answer any for you right now, or we could open that up later.
We'll pause here for questions from the board. Any specific questions about the architecture plans, design from the board? All set? Okay. Thank you very much for that. That was great. The
Thank
video
you.
was great.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
To build a building with the architectural details that these buildings have, we need the extra floors. It's that simple. We've got underground parking garages for a safety issue, which will help sell these units. When you can pull in, have video cameras and see the doors close and get out and walk from your car to an elevator and go up to your unit. It's pretty comforting for the type of clientele that we anticipate will be buying these units. The 8 elevators, the underground garages, the details. To make this project economically feasible, we have to go above 2.5 stories. You simply can't build this a project like this at 2.5 stories and expect to make it economically feasible. Next, I'm going to go into the benefits to the town that this project provides. But before I do, I just want to read, because there was some criticism about all the benefits only benefit this project. So I just want to read to you from Chapter 240, Section 168-6, which is the general ordinances dealing with regulatory agreements. The elements of a regulatory agreements: A, profits by a qualified applicant. A regulatory agreement may include, but is not limited to, the provisions whereby a qualified applicant agrees to provide certain benefits which contribute to one or more of the following. I'm just going to pick out 3 of them that I think are applicable to this project. Number 1, the town's infrastructure. Number 2, affordable housing, either on or off-site. And number 9, that number 2 is actually number 4 in the ordinance. I wasn't very good at math. Number 9, any other benefit intended to serve the proposed development. That's any other benefit intended to serve the proposed development, municipality or county, including site design standards to ensure preservation of community character and natural resources. I would submit to you that the project design here takes 2 undeveloped lots, underutilized lots, and really sets a new standard for design for projects in the east end of Hyannis. If that doesn't protect community character, I don't know what does. These are beautiful projects, and it sets the tone for the east end of Hyannis, which needs it. The construction of the condominium will result in the following benefits to the town. Above-ground utility lines will be put underground, improving the view looking from South Street towards the harbor. Again, community character. The existing sidewalks along the property frontage on South Street and the intersection at South Street and School Street will be improved as shown on the... I lost a page there. Will be improved as shown on the plans. I'm sorry, the existing sidewalks would be improved as shown on the Town of Barnstable Department of Public Work Plan entitled Markups to Applicants. Pat's got it up there. He was a step ahead of me. We will make those improvements to the intersection of South Street and School Street. The town would be responsible for putting in any lights or any flashing signs or anything like that. The existing sidewalks along School Street, which do not comply with Americans with Disability Act requirements, will be removed and replaced with compliant sidewalks. Sidewalks will comply with Town of Barnstable requirements for public sidewalks. The sidewalks along each side of School Street will be constructed, connecting them to the sidewalks on South Street. Upon completion of construction, the town would be granted an easement allowing public use of the sidewalks. Said easement shall be reviewed as to form by the town attorney and shall be granted in perpetuity and recorded in the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds by the developer. A new water main will be provided, which will improve the infrastructure of the Hyannis Water Company and improve the water pressure and volume of water to the hydrant located near the town landing down by the dock. School Street from South Street to the end of the public way near Hyannis Harbor will be paved over with a new top coating of asphalt. Crosswalks will be installed at the northerly end of School Street, where it intersects with South Street, at the southerly end of the property near the steamshipper property, and between the condominium buildings as shown on the plan submitted. So coming out of the Steamship Authority building, there would be a crosswalk which would direct you over to the sidewalk going up the east parcel of the property, and then you could cross again at South Street and walk up the sidewalk along School Street to the Steamship Authority parking lot up there. Vastly improved landscaping along South Street and School Street, beautifying the area. Lighting on the condominium property maintained by the condominium association will provide street lighting along School Street. Currently, there is no street lighting down there. The project would result in an increase in town property tax revenue. New street drains would be installed in School Street, and drainage easement running in favor of the town of Barnstable will be provided. These drains will help keep stormwater runoff from washing straight down into the harbor. A total of 29 electric car plug-in stations will be provided, one for each unit. All plumbing fixtures in the units will be low water use fixtures, and other water conservation measures are encouraged in the design and development of the project. And an increase in the number of housing units, which can be counted towards the town's goal of having 10% of housing stock affordable housing, would be added. Those are the community benefits, and yes, they benefit the project, and they should. They're investing in this area. They're investing in the east end of Hyannis, but there are also community benefits. Putting the utility lines below ground is expensive, but it'll improve the view there, the area, and just it beautifies the area. The buildings themselves set a tone for the east end of Hyannis. The improvement in the water infrastructure, the improvement in the drainage and on-site infiltration, all benefits the harbor. It's not just for the benefit of this project. They help our project, They support our project, but they help with community character, and they benefit the town and the town's infrastructure. We're requesting waivers from the following zoning ordinance sections. And Pat, maybe you can bring up the site plan. Under section 240-24.1.3, under general provisions, development review requires development within the downtown Hyannis zoning district to comply with Article 9, section 240-103, which basically Article 9, 240-103, site development standards in the design and infrastructure plan. And we've asked for a waiver to that, of that for the design and infrastructure plan to the extent that the project does not meet the design and infrastructure plan, and to allow it to be developed as per the plan submitted. And then under 240-24.1.3, 2B, in conjunction with formal site plan review required by Article 9, site plan review, this section requires development and modification that meets or exceeds certain thresholds be reviewed by the building commissioner or as designated a public meeting, and we're asking that be waived. We've had a couple of site plan review meetings. We've had multiple public meetings on this project, and we have another one tonight. So I don't think that wasting the building commissioner's time for another site plan review meeting is necessary on this project. Standards for all district in the downtown Hyannis zoning districts, 240-24.1.5 building standards, frontage types. Frontage types requires buildings on corner lots to have 2 frontage types, 1 for each frontage. The applicant submits that the proposed building meets the common lobby frontage type as specified by Table 11 in the zoning ordinance, but to the extent we are deemed not to meet him, we're asking for a waiver. So that's another one of those waivers where we believe we meet it, but we don't know how those frontage types are being interpreted. So if necessary, we've asked for the waiver. Under 240-24.1.5, 3A, provides that buildings may not exceed the maximum number of stories as specified in each district. And in the Hyannis Harbor District, allows a maximum of 2 1/2 stories. We're asking for a waiver for that to allow us to go to 4 1/2 stories. As Mike pointed out, up front near South Street, we're at 3 stories, and as we go back towards the water, we go up to the 4 1/2. Under 4A of that section provides that buildings may not exceed the maximum building height specified for each district. In the Hyannis Harbor District, the maximum building height is 35 feet. We're asking for a waiver to allow the east building to be 60.08 feet and the west building to be 58.58 feet. And then building components are permitted as specified by Table 12, and we're asking for a waiver to those to the extent that we may or may not meet them. I looked at Table 12 again tonight, and I'm frankly not quite sure what it means or what they're trying to get to. It talks about depth of bay windows and things like that. To the extent that we don't meet it, we've asked for a waiver. Parking standards. Location prohibits motor vehicle parking of any type within the frontage area of the lot and any required landscape buffer. We're asking for a waiver of that, and that's for the 8 spots along the east parcel. You can see them on the upper right here. There's 5, and at the lower corner of the property, there's 3 more, and then there's a couple of spots along the west parcel as well. We're asking for a waiver of that. We're only required to have 29 parking spaces. We have 70 provided. We can eliminate all the on-street parking and be within the requirements of the current zoning ordinance. But we're asking for those waivers because we think it's important to keep the additional parking for guests coming in and out. They don't have to try and get that down. Don't have to make arrangements for them to go down into the parking garages, et cetera. If got somebody stopping by to drop something off. We felt the on-street parking was significant, and therefore we're requesting that waiver. Site standards. Landscaping requires all site plans and special permit applications for development that meet certain thresholds under 240-24.1.3 B2 B1 submit a landscape plan stamped by a landscape architect. We've asked for a waiver of that. We didn't have a landscape architect plan the last time. It was prepared by Down Cape Engineering. They're very competent and capable of preparing the landscaping plan, so we simply asked for a waiver. Service parking lot design standards. Surface parking lot standings, landscaping, A, requires 1 3-inch minimum caliper tree be planted within 50 square feet of permeable area. We're asking for a waiver. Pat, if you can point to the tree at the bottom of the 5 parking spots there on the east parcel. Yes. We have the tree, we just don't really have the 50 feet of permeable area around it, and we'll kind of take a look at what size tree can fit into that area. And then 3B requires a front landscape buffer at least 10 feet wide be provided between any parking lot and any lot line abutting an improved way, and must include certain landscape features. And we've asked for a waiver as to the requirement for a landscape buffer and to the features, and that's again relates to the surface parking along School Street. E requires at least 10% of any parking lot with 10 or more parking spaces be landscaped. This is one I'm pretty sure we don't need, but we asked for it anyway, just because of the way it's drafted. The 2 underground parking lots have more than 10 or more parking spaces, so we asked for a waiver. I don't think the intent is that landscaping applied to underground parking, but we've asked for that waiver. And F requires landscape islands abutting a single row of parking spaces be at least 6 feet in width and the same length as the parking spaces. Each island must include 1 3-inch minimum caliper tree. We're asking for a waiver as to the width of island and the number of trees. And again, that relates to the on-street parking at School Street. So there's 1, 2, 3. There's about a half a dozen of our waivers that relate to those on-street parking, which, as I stated, we could eliminate and be within full compliance with the zoning ordinance on parking, and then we could meet those landscape requirements, but we felt it was significant to keep those spaces as part of this project. Section 240.24.1.10, the Hyannis Harbor District. These are the specific regulations for the district. Those were the general for the downtown Hyannis zoning districts. And they kind of repeat. Building standards specifies that principal buildings are permitted as specified by Table 7, and Table 7 provides for primary front setback of 20 feet minimum. We're asking for a waiver to allow a primary setback from South Street of 19 feet, or 1-foot waiver, and for 110 School Street, and 15.8 for 115 School Street. And we're asking for a waiver to allow a primary front yard setback from School Street of 10.2 for 110 School Street and 8.1, and that's from the 20-foot minimum front yard setback. And then to the extent that the requirement applies to the front ingress and egress of the stairs, they come right down to the street, to the property line, as you saw in the video. If those require a waiver, we're asking for a waiver for that. Secondary front setback, 20-foot minimum. We're asking for a waiver to allow the secondary front setback from School Street of 7.3 for the refuse shed on 110 School Street. Pat, if you can point to that. And then the secondary front setback from South Street of 7.5 for the refuse shed at 115 School Street, which is up in the right up in that area. The side setback, it's a 10-foot minimum. We're asking for waivers to allow a side setback of 9.7 for the building at 110 School Street, so it's a 0.30 waiver. The rear setback, 10-foot minimum. We're asking for a waiver to allow a rear setback of 9.7 building at 110, 9.7 for the building at 110 School Street, and a rear setback of 8.9 for the building at 115 School Street. Kind of nominal waiver requests. And then the two biggies, number of stories, 2.5 maximum. We're asking for a waiver to allow a maximum of 4 stories for 110 School Street and 115 School Street. And building height, 35 feet maximum. We're asking for a waiver to allow a building height of 60.08 feet for 110 School Street and 58.58 for 115 School Street. And then landscape standards requires front landscape area at least 10 feet wide, which must include specified landscape features. We're asking for waivers to both width and specified landscape features to allow the landscaping as per the plans submitted. And then from general ordinances, Chapter 9, Article 1, Inclusionary Affordable Housing Requirements, Section 9-4D, requires at least 10% of the residential units constructed be dedicated to deed restriction to affordable housing units. We're asking for a waiver of that. The developer will provide 6 off-site rental units, 3 at 65% AMI and 3 at 80% AMI at 310 Barnstable Road in Hyannis. As I stated earlier, those would consist of 5 3-bedroom units and 1 one-bedroom unit, deed restricted in perpetuity. Under Chapter 112, Article 3 requires a proposed development obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Committee. We're asking for a waiver of that to the extent that the project was issued a certificate of appropriateness back on February 16th, 2022, and any changes post that, we're asking for a waiver. In the regulatory agreement section of our ordinance, it designates the planning board as the principal party to negotiate regulatory agreements on behalf of the town, the planning board or your designee. You can take input from other boards in town. You're not required to, but you can take it, you can request it, or they can request to give input. It was never the intent of the regulatory agreement section of our general ordinances to allow a historic committee or some other committee usurp the authority of this committee by blocking a project. If we took this project, we did take this project to the Hyannis Historic Main Street Waterfront District Committee. I hope I got it right. We took it to them, and it got approved, it got appealed, and the appeal was denied, and we don't want to go back to that committee. We don't think we should have gone in the first place. I think it was wrong that it was strongly recommended by the town staff that we go to them. This is supposed to be kind of like a comprehensive hearing under the Zoning Board of Appeals for 40B. You are the authority. You can request input from other boards, but as I said, no other board has a right to usurp your authority by blocking a project before it even gets to you. I'm almost done. Pat, if we can go to the slide. Showing the net effect of new zoning. We prepared this slide. I'm trying to stay away as much as I can from the prior project because that's no longer before you. You denied it, and now we're back. But the question, as I stated earlier, was what's changed, and here's what's changed in the net effect of the new zoning. In the 2022 application, we had 29 units. In the 2023 application, we have 29 units. The prior application had 33 requests for zoning relief. The new application has 19, many of which, as I stated, we could easily eliminate. In 2022, we're required to have 57 parking spaces. Now we're required to have 29, and we provide 70. And the big kicker that's not up there is the density requirements. We no longer have a real density. Before, we had a waiver for the density. We had, I think it was roughly 28 units per acre, and you were limited to 7 under the old zoning. Under the current zoning, if you can build the parking space, you can build the unit. So we're required to have 29 parking spaces for our 29 units, and that's a density requirement. Another one is that the lot coverage. For lot coverage, it used to be 70%. We're at 76%, roughly speaking, on both lots. One's 76.7 or 8, and the other 76.0. You can now have 90% lot coverage. Pat, if you can go to the maximum building height under the new zoning ordinance. The zoning, not only in the Hyannis Harbor District, has changed. The height, I want to stress, the height did not change, and the number of stories did not change. But the area around it has changed significantly. There is now a downtown hospital district that allows up to 85 feet and 6 stories. There is a second tower going up as we speak. There's a downtown village district, which allows up to 66 feet and 4 stories. That's where the Lewis Bay condominium property is, and then you flip over one zone and it picks up again miraculously where it says Sea Captain's Village. 66 feet in both of those districts. And directly across the street in the downtown neighborhood district, they can go to 50 feet and 3 stories. As we abut that directly across the street, we will be below 50 feet for that front portion of our project. And again, it goes up as you go back away from the street and taper down towards the harbor front. We also took a look at, okay, what can we do as of right out there under the new zoning? And Pat, if you can bring that project up. We can build a 2.5-story building. This is 24.5 feet high. There are 60 units proposed. It's on 1.32 acres. It would be 45 units per acre. 82 bedrooms. It'd be 22 two-bedroom units and 38 one-bedroom units. Parking spaces, 60 are required, and we're proposing we'd have 73 on that project. That meets all setbacks requirements. The lot coverage for the west building would be 60.7% of the 90%, and the lot coverage for the east building would be 60%. So that project that you're looking at could be built as of right. The parking is again under the building, but it's not in a underground garage. It's got the garage doors that go up and down and keep you secure, and you can see underneath the buildings into the parking area. So my clients own this property for 25 plus years, and like the rest of us, he's not getting any younger, and he kind of is of the opinion that it's time for him to do something a little more productive with this land. He's looked at possibly doing boat storage. He went before Historic to do a couple of metal buildings for boat storage. He's looked into maybe possibly rack storage of boats, or even just shrink wrapping and storage of boats. But he's a full block from the harbor. That would require a lift going up and down to the town dock to take boats out and put them in. Multifamily housing is an allowed use. We are of the opinion that multifamily housing is the best use for this property, both for the community and for my client as a developer. So as I stated, you got the as of right project, which has no frills, and we understand that. It meets the 2.5 stories. We're asking for the 4.5 stories to build the spectacular building that you saw. So in conclusion, the downtown Hyannis zoning districts, they promote compact multifamily residential development as of right. The proposed project, when considered under the downtown Hyannis zoning, is significantly different from the previous application submitted, as you saw from the difference in waivers, 33 waivers down to 19. Proposed number of parking spaces, we're proposing 70, even though we're only required to have 29. Although the new zoning did not change the maximum height for the Hyannis Harbor District, there have been substantial height increases in the neighboring districts, as you can see. We are closer to those districts than we are to the harbor. You're going to hear people talk about, this harborfront, waterfront lot. It is not a harborfront, waterfront lot. There is a lot between each of our parcels owned by other people. One's a steamship authority, and one is Mr. Kirker, who's here this evening. We're proposing 6 off-site affordable housing units, and as I read to you under the regulatory agreement, that is something that's anticipated as part of a regulatory agreement. The downtown Hyannis zoning amendment allows for as-of-right construction of the 60-unit, 82-bedroom facility as we showed you. And we're asking that instead of getting another nondescript condominium project or rental project in downtown Hyannis, set the tone for what should be the development in the east end of Hyannis by recommending that the town manager approve this, or sign the regulatory agreement for this project, and give it an opportunity to go to the town council for them to have a full and proper review. And I'll be happy to take any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Attorney Kenny. A great, thorough presentation. And we'll now go to the board for questions, comments, concerns, and then we will go to the public. Obviously, we have, I'm sure, many that want to speak this evening. We want to make sure that we give everyone that opportunity. Matt, any comments, questions off the top?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we let public comment go first.
Okay, sounds good. Mary?
Agreed.
Sounds good. Ray?
Same.
Bob?
I'm good.
Tim?
Same.
Michael?
I agree.
Okay. We will now go to public comment. Thank you, Attorney Kenny. We may be back later with questions.
Hopefully there aren't any.
I'm sure there may be. The next phase of our meeting here is public comment. If you wish to comment, please come on forward to the podium. State your name for the record. We're going to keep the public comment to 3 minutes as we've done in the past. Okay. Welcome.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Barbara Riggs. I live at Lewis Bay Condominiums. And the whole aesthetic of everything is one issue, but I'll tell you what our issue is: parking. Now, these are going to be luxury condos, which means that most of the people who buy are going to have more than one car. So let's say each unit owner has 2 cars. That uses up about 60 parking spaces, which only leaves 10 more for guests or anybody else that may be coming to and from family members to those condos. Where are they going to park? Where is the overage going to go? I can tell you right now, it's going to go in our lot, and we'll be towing, because we're very well marked. We don't want to be battling with our new neighbors, but parking is an issue. Not only that, but traffic is too. I mean, if you're anywhere in our area, this end, when the hospital lets out, there's going to be more of a traffic issue between the hospital and everybody else using South Street, Lewis Bay, School Street, Pleasant Street. There's a lot of traffic. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Karen, Jim, is there a sign-in sheet as well? There is? Okay. Do you mind just signing your name, ma'am, at the podium? It should be up at the podium with a pen. And we'll take our next public comment. Come on down to the podium. Awesome. Thank you again.
My other issue is, where are all the construction trucks going to park?
Welcome, sir. Thank you. Please state your name for the record. Take it away.
Good evening. My name is Jay Tracy, and we've been a business owner in town for the past 55 years. And I started working down here in 1957 when I was in high school, left and came back in 1968, and we've been here ever since. I feel that we're lagging behind a little bit aesthetically. I don't feel that we really look downtown quite the way we should. I feel that this project will enhance the area. The area has become tremendously commercial. The hospital is taken over, and I think this would enhance the harbor needs it. The harbor needs to look better for all the boats that come in here in the summer. We are a summer recreation area. I think that they've worked very, very hard to come up with a plan. Undoubtedly, there'll be some more changes to the plan, but I think that it's very important to the town to show that we are willing to make some changes that'll aesthetically improve things and make people want to come to Hyannis, not necessarily, and they're not all coming here to shop, unfortunately, right now, but when I was young, people were coming here to walk the streets, loving Hyannis. And I think we've gotten just a tiny tad away from that, to be perfectly frank. And I think a lot has gone into this project. And I think a lot of consideration by the town, I hope, will go into this project. This is more than just a little thing. This guy's 81 years old. He's had trouble getting a lot of things passed. He's spent a lot of money. He's worked awful hard on it. He deserves a lot of consideration for this. I don't know him at all, hardly, except I've met him once or twice over the years. But I do love Hyannis, and I love it as much as anybody, or more. And I'd really like to see it start improving a little more, and I think this is a really good step in the right direction, and I hope others feel the same way. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Very much appreciated. Thank you, sir. And the next member of the public to speak, come on down to the podium.
Hi, good evening. My name is Felicia Penn, lifetime resident of Hyannis. And I'm not sure if you got my correspondence or not. You did. Thank you very much for that. It was stuck in my outbox all weekend. I don't know what happened to it. I discovered and sent it along. Thank you, Karen, for distributing it. So I just want to state, we're not just a summer recreational area, we are year-round, and most of us do live here who are here tonight year-round. So I want to thank you for your former vote not to approve the former regulatory agreement for this project. I ask you to be consistent in your thought process, to compare the waiver request to our zoning, particularly the height, the density, and the parking. And this is a new project that's before you, even though it's been reviewed, because it's a brand-new application. I hope you consider it that way. It's not a continuance, it's not a modification, it's entirely new, it stands on its own. Every request and waiver must be considered as if you're considering it for the first time, which is very difficult to do, I know. I especially ask that you dismiss or deny the waivers that request you to grant permission for the applicant to bypass the building commissioner in formal site plan review, and the waiver that requests that the applicant not appear before the Hyannis Main Street Historic Waterfront District Commission. All new projects must complete these reviews before they come to the planning board, and it's especially crucial that this application follow the norm. The planning board is not the board that determines architectural appropriateness. I know you know this. This is in the Hyannis Historic District. It needs to go to this commission, as this is a brand-new application. There's no reason for the planning board to make exceptions for this new application, especially considering that formal site plan now plays a new role in the Harbor District, and the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront District Commission has been reconstituted since this project was last reviewed. I thank you for your consideration on that. I also want to say that when Mr. Kenny did his presentation to you tonight, there's no itemization that I saw in the reg agreement of how this project differs from the design and infrastructure plan. It just says, you know, we differ here, there, and whatever, so we want to waive all those differences. But I didn't see anything specific that said what the differences were. And as far as frontage compliance, they want to waive that too, but there are 8 types of frontages to comply with in the new zoning, and this doesn't comply with any of them, I guess. It was not pointed out or iterated anywhere or enumerated where they different and what they need waivers from. If I was sitting on that side of the desk, I'd sure like to know what all those differences are. You can't just look at something and say, no, we're going to waive this. So I think you need the respect to hear from the applicant as to how that's going to happen. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Felicia. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
I have no voice left, but my name is Chuck Carey. My family moved to C Street, Hyannis in 1960. I've had a commercial real estate business here since 1991, known as Carey Commercial on Main Street. Excuse me. I've seen a lifetime of changes to this town and a career full of business. That doesn't make my opinion more valuable than anyone else, but it does make mine valid. A healthy community has a wide spectrum of individuals. Substantial town efforts have been commendably focused on certain segments of the population. However, there's another group that will vitalize the community rather than absorb resources. The waterfront attracts the fortunate. Very simply put, what Hyannis lacks is more upscale housing that'll bring dollars to business and taxes to the town. Few developers have the ability to produce what Mr. Bornstein can. We're fortunate he's willing to build such a project, as opposed to the 60 unit. There are optional scenarios that would actually produce more of a return and cost less, but he wants to build the high-end version with less units. If you don't mind me saying this, you should consider assisting him in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. And next member of the public, come on down. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I know I usually appear before you as a paid advocate, but I'm here tonight actually as a local business person, a person who has represented Mr. Bornstein on a couple of his projects. And I'm here to tell you that I've been in town since 1975 as a business person. I've owned property. I've seen multiple changes. My name is Michael Princey. And I've seen the condominiums down at the Yachtsman get built. I've seen progress along Ocean Street in terms of upgrades and condominiums built there. I've seen a dynamic change and proposed changes in the waterfront district that I think lead us to a point now, especially where we have adopted new zoning in Hyannis to encourage higher density. And as you can see from the contrast between the project that he could build as a matter of right and the project that he's asking you to waive so that he can build is dramatically different. And to the person that spoke from the condominium up the street, if she thinks that the parking would be bad with the 39 units, if 60 units were built, it probably would lead to even more congestion and more traffic. And the other one is a matter of right. In a couple of the projects that I've represented Stuart on most recently over the past 10 years, one hits me, and I think it demonstrates his commitment to the downtown area. He took the Cape Cod Times building, which was either going to be reprocessed into some type of office or other use, and he created some pretty nice apartments there. And he did it spending a lot of money. He did it maintaining the integrity of the buildings downtown. He didn't go up 10 stories or 5 stories or whatever number of stories you're allowed now. He did something that I think was a credit to him and a credit to the town. This proposal will be a showcase for the waterfront district. It will be a spectacular entry into our very small waterfront in Hyannis, and it will be a project that lowers the density of a project that could be there. It's a project that will showcase what Hyannis is about in terms of upgrading its view. I think it's in keeping with everything that Elizabeth's been doing downtown to create a much better atmosphere from the Rotary where the tent is all the way up to the waterfront. And so I encourage you wholeheartedly to grant these waivers, and they are waivers, and that's the part of the regulatory agreement that's interesting. You give something to the developer because the developer's giving something back to you, giving something back to the town. There are trade-offs here. Now, one of the things that strikes me is with the hospital going up and adding the oncology unit and all of the other facilities they're going to be adding to the area, I mean, I just have a sense that you're going to have some of your doctors that are going to want to live in a place like this, near the hospital, just walk up the street to work. I sense also that there are going to be many downtown business people that will look at that project and say, you know, I want to live downtown in Hyannis. So they're going to become resident members of the Barnstable community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments this evening. Next member of the public, please come on down to the podium. Good evening. Welcome.
I'll put my name first.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairman Robichaud and members of the Planning Board Committee. My name is Laura Cronin. I'm a resident here in Hyannis. I live on 402 South Street. And in seeing this application come before you again, had a lot of questions, and I'm just trying to get the clarification as to why it's coming before you right now. I listened to the presentation, and this is a new application, a new regulatory agreement, so I'm trying to understand where the waivers would come in from. Most of the comparisons that were used from the 222 to 223 regulation talks about the number of waivers being granted and the rezoning, but the rezoning had nothing to do with the Hyannis Harbor District. A lot of the rezoning that we've done, we worked really hard, the town has, the planning department, and I think they've come up with a really good form-based zoning proposal that we are going to hopefully revitalize downtown Main Street and Hyannis. However, the Hyannis Harbor District has not been changed. Nothing has changed on those new zonings. The only time that I can see, only way I see that the number have changed is because of the rezoning and the consolidation of some of them. So instead of maybe having 39 variances that used to be in there before, they have been consolidated. And that was in an effort to create more developers using zoning without regulatory agreements. Coming through our planning and our zoning, you have the way to regulate what the growth is, and it's smart growth. And Hyannis Harbor District has not changed. It's still 2.5 stories. The density is still there. All of the landscaping and all of the other waivers and conditions that this applicant is looking for are still the same that they were before. This is a very large area, a small area to try to make it sound like this is going to be the big opening to the Hyannis Harbor. Hyannis Harbor is beautiful, and we haven't decided what it's going to look like yet. We don't have any choice but the hospital. The hospital has its own zoning. It doesn't have any requirements to comply with the local and town zoning. The other buildings are in existence, so this is still where it was before, and I'm hoping that you would consider just doing what we did before and vote this off. It's a new agreement, and nothing has changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deborah Dagwan, and I've lived here in the town for over 40 years myself. My husband's family's been here over 100 years. And I'm speaking tonight because I'm still concerned about the height restriction. We have a site plan review board. We have a historic commission. We have a planning board. And many other organizations or boards that have spent a lot of time reviewing these zoning restrictions, and to just kind of throw it aside and say, well, we'll overlook that, and possibly overlook that. I think this is a beautiful building that Mr. Bornstein has here. However, I think it does not conform to the height that the harbor should have. I think the alternative building that he showed with the 60 units is ugly. I sent him a message. Him and I have been talking for the last few weeks and so. And I sent him a message this afternoon stating that I'm concerned about the height. And, if you could cut this building in half, it would fit over there. But as it stands now, it does not conform to what we need. I'm also an abutter. I've been an abutter to one of the properties that Mr. Bornstein said, the Village Marketplace, and when it opened, it probably had 10, 15 great stores, bookstores, Eastern Mountain Sports. Scandinavian furniture. None of that is there right now. And I think it has to do with the project itself. None of those businesses are there. So I have to look at, both sides. As an abutter, as a former town councilor myself, and all the work that people have put into establishing these regulations, I think we have to be very, very careful about handing out waivers, because the next person that comes along is going to say, well, you gave this one the waiver, how come I can't get that? And then we're going to have all these 4-story structures down there that we shouldn't have. We are trying to change our town. We are doing some rezoning and looking at it a little bit more careful. And I think we need to give it that time to do that. And I think I'd love for this applicant to bring this project back. This is the 4th time this has come up. And each time I'm just hoping and praying that it will come back with what we're asking for. I love our developers, especially those that come and invest in this town. And Mr. Bornstein has invested in this town, and I appreciate what he's done. But I also feel it's my obligation to see that we adhere to what has been established in terms of regulations and zoning, et cetera, here in the town. So that's all I wanted to say. And I hope that this project does not go through tonight until we can get Mr. Bornstein to actually comply with what we're asking. And tonight would have been a great night. It would come in with some of the things that we've been asking for. And it would have been an easy thing for me or anyone else to come up and say, yes, this is it. We love it. And I like this building. This is a beautiful building. But it's not what we need, and it doesn't comply with what the regulations say right now.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Next member of the public. Come on down. State your name for the record.
Roberta Mock, 80 Greenwood Ave, Hyannis. I'm going to start, if you don't mind, because I didn't know how to do. I have a full-time job too, so this is important to me as it is to everyone here. We all have one thing in common. We love our town, don't we? I mean, we do have that in common. I just want to show you. I'm just going to show you. Last time I ate dockside.
Just hold. Yeah, hold your comment until you get to the podium.
And I wanted to show them the history of Hyannis Harbor. I have a hard time finding this. Maybe it's buried in Otis, but I was told that we practiced for storming Normandy from Hyannis to Nantucket, and Fresh Holes used to be barrack. And I thought, wow, that's, because I know sometimes I've seen the World War II men behind the quarterdeck have a ceremony. So I just am amazed at the history we have in our town. So I just had to say that. And I'll go back to my little notes here. I'm going to start with Gloucester Harbor. I have a friend who drones Gloucester Harbor. And it's so, what I love about what they do in Gloucester is they have so much respect for our fishermen and men at sea. And you feel it when you go there. And we have some, but I'd like to see more because we are just like Gloucester to me. And okay, I mean, one of the things that I've been to there, because they have a barn with the shipbuilding museum, and they have the Chronicle, you'll see they'll do the boats back and forth, and to raise money to save the heritage of our past. Okay, we need to continue with that, like what they do in Gloucester. They have races with these. So that's one thing. Okay. Few little things. Past storm, Baxter's parking lot flooded. I mean, I was shocked, but it did. Let me see. The boats that come down that area to get into the water with cars on that road. I mean, one thing about your beautiful building, I agree. It was there was no, you didn't show cars parked on the road, and you can't get the boats down there and have traffic. And, I mean, this is a busy section because you're right next to the steamship. And I was looking at the Hyannis Harbor's Historical Society, and they used to have the train extended to the harbor. I mean, we need to go back and look at the history of what we have before we lose it forever. And that's what I want to preserve, really. Okay, let me get what other points I want to make. So I guess I made my point about this is a destination for anyone from the world. I mean, I've made friends with people from China that just want to be here and see. And this is the town where John F. Kennedy went to church at St. Francis. I mean, we have so much history here. We need to continue to respect our past as we take pride in our town, because we all have that in common, I think. The light pollution bothers me. I love listening to the train I've been hearing now and the ferry. I don't know, I think I wish our town could do something about this. I think it's probably why the Outback moved. That odor that you just, last Saturday I could still smell it. I don't know what's going on with that, but I just don't want to see, I'm rounding it up here. I don't want to see every square inch of Hyannis paved. That old paved paradise, and put up a parking lot. Yeah, let's not do that here. This is a special, special place. What have I forgotten? I don't know. I guess I'll end with that. Thank you.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Next member of the public, come on down. Just state your name for the record. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Denise Johnson. I've been coming to the Cape for 35 years, to Hyannis and Barnstable. I've been a full-time resident for 5 years. I am on the zoning board, but I'm not here in any official capacity other than to express my own beliefs. When I found out that there would be a separate set of zoning requirements for this area, I was told that it was a state-originated program that was to encourage and expedite affordable housing being built. And that's why we created this. I know there are other aspects to it about generating commercial development, et cetera. But I think we put people through the rack if they're trying to move their setbacks 10 feet, or they're trying to add on another building to their property that means they're covering more of the acreage. So I think with this, it's the other thing I want to say is the two biggest issues in the elections that are going on now in the public are preserving the environment and the village-like quality of our towns. The second being affordable housing. There's rarely a meeting of the town council or any other body where affordable housing doesn't come up. I guess I don't know how we can justify for 29 owners, and I've been told the price of these are going to be over $1 million. I don't know how we can take away our view, take away a lot of the character of the town. It's a pretty building, I agree, but it looks like it belongs in suburbia or someplace else, Newport. I just think you have to consider the overall long-term impact and the fact that putting this ahead and giving all these variances where we won't let homeowners do that and we don't let anybody else do it, and we certainly aren't serving any of the people that are really looking for affordable housing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, did you sign in? Sorry. Yep. Don't forget to sign in. Sir, come on down. Just state your name for the record.
Sure, Greg Schnipke. Actually live across the street in the 89 Lewis Bay condos, which Stu and John have referred to as ugly on many occasions, so apologize for that. There's 70 parking spaces for the number of units. My son lives in a condo in New York. They have one parking space per unit. They have about 8 visitor spaces for every 4 units. They are parked in the streets, on the sides, on the lawns, everywhere. It's just not enough for a 3,700 square foot building. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I guess, I didn't care for the veiled threat for that 2.5-story gray chicken coop that was proposed. And you guys should be embarrassed for putting your name on that.
Chairman,
The
decorum here.
I'll stick to the decorum. So the other thing is, if you're going to have zoning laws, then have zoning laws. If not, then just throw them out the window. So this is okay. This is not a Cape development. That's a suburban development, but that's okay. It looks good, but keep it at the height restriction, keep it within the zoning, and stay within the rules and play the game. And if Stu really wants to make a legacy, then make a park out of it. Make it a beautiful waterfront park. But, just keep this thing within reason. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Next member of the public, come on down. Welcome, sir. State your name for the record.
Bernard Kilroy. I have a law office at 67 School Street, and I've been working on School Street since 1961, so I'm fairly familiar with the area. I think that Hyannis is a poor sister of the rest of the villages in the town. When I look at the lack of tax base, we have the Steamship Authority, which in my period on School Street added that huge parking lot, paved parking lot, just to the east of School Street. We have the hospital. We have the Barnstable Housing Authority building on South Street. We have this building, none of which is contributing to taxes, and I think that's an important thought that you should keep in mind. Also, I suppose if the sailing captains were still sailing today, they'd be building a building as big as this, this proposed building, the way I see it. But I'm all for the project. It's a beautiful couple of buildings, and I think you should approve it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anybody else from the public? Come on down. Oh. Well, we really like to just stick to one comment per person. I apologize. Anybody else? Come on down. Cheryl, welcome. Come to the podium. State your name.
Cheryl Powell. Let me just sign in here. This is something I usually forget to do, to sign in. I'll have to learn to shorten my address. Good evening, everybody. I think most of you know me, not only individually, but also I am chairman of the Hyannis Main Street and Waterfront Historic District Commission, otherwise known as the HHDC, for about 8 years, I think now. There's a number of things to cover, but I'll keep it short. The bottom line is that this is a new application, but I don't want to talk about the actual design and things like that, because as it is a new application, I feel very strongly procedure should be followed and it should go back to the HHDC. And I would not want to be accused of predetermination or anything, because I always make it a rule, personal rule for myself and for the others. Be fair, don't predetermine, don't, deliberate outside. So I am going to be speaking about the procedure. I think that it may well, I hope, and should come back to the HHDC. That's why it's only on procedure. The eminent attorney, Kenny, he talked about It seems to, there shouldn't be a group that could block it before going to planning. And that, I feel that that's not right because we are the HHDC charged. It is part of what we are sworn to do to protect the character and the historic. That's why we are the Historic District Commission for the waterfront and Main Street. And I was so pleased to hear Attorney Kenny say that for the waiver, one of the things that the reasons for that they're putting down is for the character. Excellent. So we're in complete agreement. Also, it's frequently compared to the hospital, but I would point out that the hospital is not in the historic district. It's on the edge of it, outside of it, but it is not in it. Also, it is said that this project is closer to other areas where the zoning allows for higher. Maybe so, but it is in the historic district, and that's, we can't change. It has been said that there are, zoning, I've already gone over that, that there are the members have all changed on the HHDC from the first time it was approved. And it barely was approved, but it was. Only one remains, and we do have a great commission. We're fair, we're honest, and we try very hard, and I'll stand behind any one of our commissioners for doing the due diligence as much as possible. I will say that one of the members who voted yes was very concerned. He was a new member, and we all know that serving on a committee or a commission is a virtually vertical learning curve. You're thrown in the fire. It was Commissioner Mark Despadopoulos, and he wrote to me, he cornered me at the end of the meeting, and he said, I think I voted the wrong way, but I don't know, was I supposed to vote this way or that way? He then sent me an email, which did go to the town. Good morning, Cheryl. Since it has come to my attention that some abutters to 110 School Street and 53 School Street in Hyannis, Mass. Might not have been properly notified about this project, I feel that they had the right to be heard, if they so choose. Can this be done? It did go to the town. It could not be done. I then wrote to him, I won't take time just saying, I'm going to send this on if this is okay with you, if this comes before the appeals or anything else. And he says, yes, Cheryl, by all means, resubmit my letter of concern from earlier on April 5th in this regard. So, and this was one of the yes votes. And well, we don't know what would have happened otherwise, do we? So I urge the planning committee to please follow the rules. This is a new application. There have been substantial, significant changes to this. This is not what was approved. This is a new application. Felicia Penn was right. I believe former town councilor Deb Dagmon also spoke with regard to this and also with regard to the character. Numerous people have mentioned the character. So in almost closing, I don't want to go into the project itself. There's my notes on that. So in closing, I want to point out this is not what was approved. This is a new application. Please follow procedure. Send it back to the HHDC. Due to the significant changes and not being the same thing. As I've already said, we have a great commission now. I trust to do their jobs. Can come back to us either as a modification from the one that was rejected by planning for us to reconsider fairly, or as a new application to be considered fairly. I agree with former town councilor Deb Dagmon. You don't want to set a dangerous precedent because how long is that piece of string that you're creating there? And I'll close by using the actual reason was one of them for the waivers was to preserve character. That's what the HHDC does. That is in our ordinance. And all I can say is, as I would do for any of our applicants, I guarantee are doing our very best to have a fair hearing. That's what we do. We always try to make things work. Sometimes the problem is just getting the applicants to work with us and say, you can't really do this. Have you tried that? And 99.9% of the time it works. We have an extremely low rejection. I don't think we've had any Oh, we've had one rejection this year so far. Maybe that was at the end of last year, but it's very, very low because most people will work with us. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for your time. And the other thing I'd point out is so far the people that have come forward, I've been keeping kind of a tally. Over 2/3 are saying, please don't. But I think the way to deal with it is to send it back for us, follow that procedure, and we will do our very best to do what we can. Thank you very much, and thank you for hearing me out.
Great. Thank you so
I have
much.
signed in. Haven't forgotten this time.
Perfect. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Next member of the public, come on down, and if we can just try and keep it to the 3 minutes. I don't want to cut anybody off, but we don't want to be here too late. Just try and keep it at 3 minutes. Sir, take it away.
Certainly will. Good evening. My name is Brian Dacey. I've lived on Cape Cod since the mid-'60s, and I've been involved in the development business and construction on Cape Cod here for 45 years. So I hear a lot of things about personalities and this person and that person. And yeah, I've been in the background watching this, but I haven't gotten too involved in it. So I have a couple quick things to say. Number one, the proposed developer has been around for a long, long time. And I've been around for a long, long time. So whatever anybody says, he's been in this town. He's done the best thing he could possibly do that he thought he could do. And he's been here since the mid-'70s, '80s, '90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. So I give him full credit for being involved. A lot of people don't agree what he did or what he built or one thing or another, but I wanted to publicly state, I, for one, appreciate the fact that he's been in the game and he's done his best that he thought he could do for the town. Having said that, a couple of people referred to a legacy of this and that. I'll just get to the project. So I think the project that is proposed is an excellent-looking project. There's a few things that I would like to change personally, but it's not my project. I agree with somebody that said, well, don't threaten and say what you could do and what you couldn't do. Let's just get to the facts. Downtown Hyannis has changed a little bit, albeit not enough. We don't have affordable housing, but we do have things that are changing. When you mention the hospital, I mean, rules or no rules, historical or no historical, it's changing. It's a different modern building. So this building here, that lot, it's been sitting there. I had one of my bachelor parties there. We've had parties in the 80s. We've had bars. We've had everything else. Nothing's happened with it because one person's owned it, and he's been paying the taxes and paying the taxes and paying the taxes and this and that. And he spent, I don't know, 4 or 5 years trying to propose something, and I think what he's proposed is a good project. What I will say, if he does get approved, you need to have a construction committee within the town that says, what are the timelines? How long is it going to take to build it? There was a lady that said, where the construction work is going to go. So if we ever get that far, or you do get that far, how much money is this project going to cost? How much is it going to be financed? We're going into tough times. All over Boston right now, they're shutting down projects. Interest rates are 9%, 10%. You got avant-garde and this and that, and all these things that everybody's talking around town. We're going into very, very tough times. So if you do approve the project, which I remember in 2007, the town thought it was wise to approve a lot of the projects because they figured the developers and the builders would go bankrupt. And I was one of them, and I got the projects approved. But I didn't go bankrupt, I finished. And I don't want to see him go bankrupt or anybody else. But if the project's approved, get a building committee, find out how much it is, get a critical path, how long is it going to take, because it is going to be tricky building that. But if you see what they're doing and Suffolk Construction is doing at Cape Cod Hospital, it's going to live like that and be like that. And I'm sure that Stewie will either sub out somebody to do it or do what he has to do. But I was here to vote in favor of the project, and I thank you for your time, and hopefully I was under 3 minutes. Thank you.
You were. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Next member of the public, please come on down to the podium. Anybody else like to speak this evening? Attorney Lawler, welcome.
Tough act to follow.
Welcome. Just state your name for the record.
David Lawler, on behalf of the Dockside Marina. Just going to sign here, so because I know I'll forget if I don't.
Yeah, take your time.
Good evening. First of all, I've been before you folks on the prior project, and I want to reference prior project. It was probably a half dozen times, I'm guessing. I kind of lost count. And it was a very well-vetted project. And I'm a little concerned that a lot of the things that weren't touched upon on the new application aren't necessarily being touched upon tonight. There are no photographs from the water. There's been no talk about the congestion on School Street. But because of some of the points that Attorney Kenny pointed out, and I think that this deserves, certainly more than, the one night of vetting. But going back to the initial statement of 40A16, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with legal counsel about, 2 bites of the apple within 2 years. But for sake of this meeting, I won't concede my argument, but I'll go along with that. But 240A16 really was the intent of the legislature for something like this. Maybe it was forgot in the regulatory agreements, but it was to prevent people from coming back from a second bite of the apple after 2 years. I mean, the amount of resources this town spent dealing with this project, and it was, represented by Attorney Kenny, who's a phenomenal lawyer, and they have, the plans, the engineers, and, tremendous experts, and it was vetted, beyond vetted, and it was shot down, and now coming back. And I know Attorney Kenny pointed to the fact that there's, some new regulations. Well, if you remember back, those regulations were pointed to. They were in draft form at the time of this application, but when this application got passed, I don't know if the new regulations had just been passed or almost passed, or they certainly were out in the public view. And not only that, they were pointed to in the other prior application, where they were saying, oh, you know what? Soon you're going to be able to build a 4-story building on Main Street in Hyannis, and soon you're going to be able to do that. So all this information was known that it was most likely going to get passed, or certainly was being presented, and it was argued in that fashion. But now they're coming back saying, well, this is all new information. I disagree with that. It was not new information, and they're, cherry picking the facts, which, quite frankly, if I was in their shoes, I might be doing some of the same things. But if you look at the facts, when they're talking about the parking regulations, we have a lot of people here from the greenery. And yes, the new parking regulations do say 1 unit per one parking space per unit. But that's if it's approved as a matter of right. Those regulations were designed in the event that you only built 2.5 stories, that you only had all these other things in place. The fact that they're asking for 19 separate waivers opens up everything. So the parking, when you do have a regulatory agreement, everything's on the table. The parking's no longer as a matter of right because you're in a regulatory agreement. So when you look at this and you look at the fact that they have 76 bedrooms for 70 parking spaces, and of those 70, I used to knew this back in March, but of those, I think a half dozen or so are double park, where you have to have one person pull in and the other person pull out. So actually, full-blown parking spaces, you have around 64. I don't have my numbers exact, but obviously I think Jim could supplement that information to you. So here, that's on the table. It's no longer as a matter of right because it's a regulatory agreement. If they could do it as a project as a matter of right, they wouldn't be here before you. So everything is in play: congestion, parking, and height. And again, they keep pointing to the planning board, the amendments that are here before you. Yes, there were changes to the zoning bylaw. But the one change that was not made was height or stories, or two changes that were not made. Those were clearly could have been on the table. This went before the town council. They had to get 9 votes on the new zoning, and it wasn't there. My understanding is actually the town is in the process of issuing a RFP for a harbor master plan. And where they're going to look at this whole area. And yes, 4 stories are allowed, not 4.5. The only place where more than 4 stories is allowed is the hospital, and that's the hospital. And God knows we all need that. And there's a special, dispensation for that. But with respect to this, and there is a harbor master plan, and there's been talk about, the history here, going back to the 80s, and I remember being at the dockside, and I guess I wasn't invited to Brian's bachelor party, but the issue is history. That goes back now, it's crazy, but that's 35, 40 years ago. This building is going to be here for 100 years. And we have an up-and-coming harbor master plan. And to now all of a sudden, because it's a new application, try to rush us to say, well, let's get this in because the applicants, I heard someone say, well, he's now in his 80s. We got to get this built. And no, we don't. We have to take our time, sit back. And the other gentleman talked about the gray building. I do think that Mr. Bornstein is not so subtly trying to strong-arm this. This is what we can do. But keep in mind, that drawing hasn't gone through site plan. It hasn't gone through historic, because if it's going to be built like that, it's going to have to be built as a matter of right. And matter of right requires site plan, it requires historic, it requires design infrastructure plan. So it's not going to be this gray blob that was presented. It's going to be something different, if at all. And I don't know, because it hasn't been through the regulatory process. And I don't think that, this is what we're going to do if we don't get approved, is appropriate by Mr. Bornstein in this application. But again, all those arguments that we had before of congestion on School Street, of the fact that the fire and rescue have to get access down there, and all the other matters, those haven't been addressed. The sight lines from the harbor, when you pull in, do you want to see over? I remember
going past 7 minutes.
Okay, but I do recall, and I appreciate the time. I do. But all these matters, and I saw the best analysis ever by Ms. Twist, going through point by point. These all have to be addressed. But this regulatory agreement should not be approved under this, by this board, and I thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Attorney Lauder, thank you. Any other members of the public? Come on down to the podium. Wayne, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Wayne Kirker. I own the Dockside Marina down by the water in front of this project. When we discussed development agreements years ago, I thought they were a great idea, and I still think so, because if you get a great project that just doesn't quite meet the standards, we can look at that. We can look at how much it's going to affect the public, and if it's and it gives us the ability to approve a great project. But in this case, we're trying to put we're trying to take a building that's way over the height, and maybe the height might go someday from 2.5 to 3 or 3.5 stories on Hyannis Harbor, and I'd have no objection to anything like that. But here you're putting a 5.5-story building on 4.5, whatever they're claiming now, on the highest spot in Hyannis Harbor, the only highest piece of real estate in Hyannis Harbor, and if you need 19 waivers, that says to somebody like me, well, maybe that just doesn't belong there. We didn't make development agreements so somebody could have 19 exceptions to the rules. I mean, it just wasn't thought of that way. And the proponent says that they're going to meet the parking standard and all that, but it won't work. Is there any chance we can put the thing back up on the site back up on the screen, please?
Do you have that PowerPoint available to pop back up?
Which one do you want, Wayne?
Just the picture of it, the main picture, no,
the facade,
not the threat, the real one.
The facade facing south. Yeah. Is that good, Wayne?
Yeah. It's a very congested area as it is, and I'm going to explain that congestion in a minute. Well, the reason it is so congested is because it's an unusual street. It's a town way to the water. And what do you have down the end of the street? You've got the police boat, and you've got 2 fire boats. And it's not infrequent that they get visited. In fact, the firemen are down there, I would say 5 or 6 times a week, and the police are there at least once a week, and that's just for checking their boats. That's not when there's a problem. I'm going to show you a picture of what it's like when there is a problem. There was a, here.
Yeah, just save your comment till you get back to the microphone. We'll pass them around. Wayne brought props.
Oh, you're all set. I gave you 2 to begin with? Okay. So what you're seeing is you're seeing days when there is a problem. There's wild congestion down there when there's no problems because you've got the steamship authority as an abutter. And from morning till night, people are coming down the hill confused. The tractor trailer will even show up once in a while. And a tractor trailer can't turn on that street. It's got to go to the bottom and hope the bottom is empty to turn, or it's got to back all the way up the hill and and onto South Street. And so it's a tough place. These 2 photos for the public I showed was an oil spill that was just earlier this month, and an unfortunate drowning at the end. Somebody that left the Cape Cod Hospital and committed suicide. On those days, you can see what it's like down the bottom of this hill and why I'm so concerned about it. There's not a question in the world that, and it's not even that unusual. And when like the oil spill happens, you got every agency coming down there. You've got of course, you've got the local fire department and the Coast Guard, and the DEP shows up, and the cleanup crews show up, and the press shows up. My parking lot we take them all because we're lucky to have a fire department. We're lucky to have a fire boat and a police boat. To me, that's a big luxury. I'm very lucky to have it. But getting down, most cars going down, once you're on that street and you get beyond a certain point, you just can't get back up. You can't get back up. Is it possible to show this from and in addition to that, they show a photo of what in the plan. It shows, there's a place for the rubbish to be collected. When somebody's trying to collect the rubbish, it's a 23-foot wide road. The smallest rubbish truck, no matter how it parks, it blocks more than half that road. You've got 10, 11, 12 feet to use when the rubbish truck is there. And it's got to go to each side and dump the trash barrels individually. And so for that period of time, there's a problem. So the harbor, the street is riddled with problems, and this is going to take something we've all learned to live with and make it worse. I've avoided putting a gate down there, which would save me a ton of payroll, because I don't want the fire truck to have to back all the way up that hill when there's other people there, and I don't want the fire department to want to have to do it. Like I say, there's nobody luckier in my business than I am to have those agencies right there. And if you look at the other flaws in the plan, I drew a quickie diagram of what it's like what it will be like just to do a simple chore like dumping the rubbish. So the rubbish truck stops to do their job, and getting by is is no day on the beach. Never mind if the hourly or half-hourly situation of a steamship authority person gets partway down and is trying to get out, or once in a while even a steamship tractor-trailer heads down there and doesn't know what to do. And we're just asking for more trouble. So although I'm glad the town has a development agreement ability, but I'm not glad to be the victim and have everybody be the victim of a street that's gets so congested on a regular basis that and now we're just looking for more trouble. You know, I think where the trying to see where the rubbish truck is going in, but you'll see where they go in, that when it's there, it can't make it in the building to get the rubbish, so it's either in the street or halfway in the street, and that's why I did this both ways. Either way, the streets, it's more than 50% blocked off, and when it's doing the building on the west side, the cars that he shows parked up there can't be there. And I don't know how that's all going to get addressed, but I'll tell you this: there's not a chance in the world that this is going to be the one place in town that doesn't get the daily FedEx or Amazon trucks. Or in this case, it'll have a pool company. I'm sure it'll have cleaning people. It'll have plumbers, and most of these people will have guests all summer. And once they go and they can't get in that garage because it's full, or they can't get in because they're just a guest, they then the car's headed that way. They've either got to make a 3-point turn right there on a 23-foot wide street, or they got to go to the bottom of the hill and make like a 6 or 9-point turn, whatever it is. And we watch those turns every day.
Yeah, Wayne, I don't want to rush it, but we're coming up on 10 minutes.
But give it up. Okay. All right. Well, I've made my point. I hope I've made my point. I would love to see a project there, but I'd like to. But this is only just trying to squeeze too much into a place that can't take it. If it fit, there wouldn't be half the room against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate your comments and appreciate the information that you brought with you. Any other members of the public like to make comment? Come on down. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mark Doran. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for over 60 years. When I first walked by there, that was, I think, Lewis Bay Lodge, and then it became the Dockside many years later. When I started walking that neighborhood, we would go to Baxter's, and fish and chips was 99 cents. So it's been quite a few years. I'm here in support of it. I'm not sure. You people are the experts, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about it. But if you can, and you can say, well, that's just an idle threat to put a larger building in with no character. I love this community. I love this town. I actually was living over at Scudder Ave when the Bornsteins built a development over there, condo development. I thought they did a beautiful job. I thought it was done tastefully and it enhances the neighborhood when they took down the old candle store. I think this architecturally is a beautiful, beautiful building. I think it enhances the neighborhood. Would I like to see it 2 stories or 3 stories? Yeah, I would. I'd raise my hand up for that. I just don't think it's economically feasible to do it. And if it was, that would be great. But if this is the best that he could put forward, I know that he's been trying to develop that site for a long period of time. I think it's a beautiful building, and I'd like to see the town continue to add these type of beautiful structures throughout the area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any additional members of the public would like to speak? This is your time to do so. Please come on down. Oh, for sure. Yeah, got it. last chance. Any other members of the public? Just want to pause, give one final chance. Okay, seeing none, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, if that's okay with all members of the board. Attorney Kenny, go ahead.
If you want to recess, that's fine, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like an opportunity to respond to.
Yes, of
Thank
course. You will absolutely have that opportunity. First, let's take a 5-minute recess unless any members of the board oppose that. Okay.
Do we have to vote that in or out?
Jim, do we have to vote that in? No, we're all set.
Okay.
So 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to get going again. We've ended our recess. Recording is back on. We'll all kind of settle in here, and we'll get back to business. Attorney Kenny, we're going to turn it over to you. As the applicant, you do have the chance to respond to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief going through these, but in addressing the traffic and congestion on South Street and School Street, there was a restaurant at this site that was only recently taken down. That generated more traffic than these condominium units will ever generate, a lot more. People kept saying, be consistent with the process, follow the process. Everybody seems to ignore the fact that development agreements are part of the process. Development agreements are only allowed in areas that are designated for development agreements. It doesn't apply all across town. So Ms. Johnson from the zoning board said, well, you can't get these types of waivers. A homeowner can't get these types of waivers for a project that comes before the ZBA. They're not eligible for a development agreement. It is a tool in the kit of the town. And so part of the process, besides our zoning, is an opportunity for this board, the town council, and then the town manager to decide whether or not a project should be granted a development agreement. Some of the people that came up here and talked about follow the process, well, if you read it, and I'm going to read from Chapter 240, Section 165, 168-5, negotiation and execution of regulatory agreements. Negotiation of the elements of a regulatory agreement between authorized parties and a qualified applicant shall be led by the planning board or its designee and shall include representatives from other municipal boards, departments, and commissions where said joint participation will assist the negotiation process. So to come here and argue that this has to go back to Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Committee is wrong. The process is supposed to be, like I said earlier, like a comprehensive permit under 40B. You are the governing body to start this process. If you want to hear from them, you can. But the chairwoman and two members of that committee weighed against it and yet told us we'd get a fair hearing. Would you go back to them? Ms. Cronin said nothing in the Hyannis Harbor District has changed. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. She's incorrect. Apparently she wasn't listening. We don't have the same density requirements that we had before. So we're not limited to 7 units per acre. If we can build a parking spot, we can build the unit. It's now 90% lot coverage, not the 70% that was previously required. Those were two of the major issues that you had a problem with. Those have changed. Ms. Dagwan talked about her concern about the height, and a lot of committees worked on establishing these regulations. Well, a lot of committees in town worked on establishing the regulatory process also. Again, it's a tool in your kit. You're entitled to use it. If you decide that this should go forward, then the town council has to look at it, they have to decide, and then the town manager. So it is a very cumbersome process to get a regulatory agreement through. Ms. Mock was concerned about I think the view from the dockside restaurant, and sure, it was a pretty view. But the dockside's gone, there is no public view, it's private property, and my client is going to use this property for something. He's going to develop this property. There is no public view. Mr. Shipley didn't quite get his name, who said that the 70 parking spaces are not enough. And the building looks like it belongs in suburbia. Well, he stated that he lives in the Lewis Bay condominiums, the old Greenery building. You tell me which one looks like more suburbia, this building or the Greenery. The other thing he doesn't seem to understand is the Greenery was built via a regulatory agreement. And the Greenery building is 61 feet high, higher than our two proposed buildings. Ms. Howe, the chairwoman of Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Committee, been consistent all along. She feels it should go back to her committee. We don't. We've asked for a waiver. I don't think it ever should have gone there in the beginning. But she says it's a dangerous precedent. It's not a precedent. First of all, on Pleasant Street, Captain's Quarters, represented by my good friend and brother-in-law, not brother-in-law, Attorney Lawler, got a regulatory agreement for the Captain's Quarters on Pleasant Street. That project did not go to Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Committee. I don't know if the greenery did. I haven't checked into that. Congestion on School Street. The height has nothing to do with congestion on School Street. It's not going to go away whether it's 2.5 stories or 4.5 stories. The parking regulations, Mr. Lawler, said we've got 76 bedrooms and only 70 spaces. Well, under the as-of-right project that I showed you as a possibility, there are 82 bedrooms, 60 spaces are required for the 60 units, and only 73 are provided. You tell me which is going to generate more traffic, the as-of-right project with 82 bedrooms and people coming in and out, or the 29-unit project with 76 bedrooms, which many of these people may have a second home somewhere. I'm going to guess most of the people that are in the 60-unit building, that would be their primary and probably year-round residence. So as of right, we can build something that will generate a lot more traffic, congestion, and parking needs than this 29-unit proposal. And there are plenty of lots around this area. Downtown, down around the harbor front, there are multiple private lots that allow for parking. It's an easy, you can take an Uber over, or you can have somebody from your family who's got a unit, meet you at the lot, pick you up, and drive down into your lot, your parking spot in the garage, and come in for a visit. It's not that difficult. Concerning fire and rescue, and Mr. Kirk, can you bring up the site plan, Pat? All the congestion's down at the end of the street where the fire and rescue are. Who's creating the congestion down there? Mr. Kirk has got a private parking lot right next to the fire and police boats. He's got multiple slips for private boat owners. If there's congestion at the bottom of the hill here, it's got nothing to do with our project. In fact, our project will improve access. The road will be paved. There will be sidewalks. Have you ever gone down there and seen a Steamship Authority boat come in and watch the people walk up the street? They're walking up the middle of the street, dragging suitcases because they have nowhere else to go. This project will, number one, improve the access for the vehicles because the road will be paved. And number two, there'll be crosswalks directing people to the sidewalks, which will be ADA compliant. And they can walk from a sidewalk from basically the Steamship Authority up to the Steamship Authority lot up on School Street. Tractor trailers go down the road. They're going down there now anyway. This project's got nothing to do with that. And once they get to the bottom, sure, they have problems turning around. Did anybody think of putting a sign up saying no SSA access? It's something that we will offer or we will do as part of the project. We can give the town an easement to do it. We can give the Steamship Authority, or we can place one at the town's request. That way there won't be any more trucks going down there. But as far as the garbage trucks are concerned, number one, we use small garbage trucks. Number two, at the top of the road there where it comes in off of South Street, you can see the two curves coming in. It's 25 feet wide. And then outside of that 25-foot wide area is the loading zone. So the trucks aren't going to stick out into the middle of the road and block off the road. I didn't get Mr. Kirk's drawing, but if you look at the site plan up there, it's 25 feet wide. It comes down. It's wider after the 25 feet, and the loading zone is outside the 25 feet. Plenty of room for a small truck to come in and pick up the garbage. As Somebody mentioned, the affordable housing and the zoning changes was for affordable housing. Mr. Bornstein's willing to give double what is required for this project. The other thing that I think is forgotten is, I don't want to go off on one of my tangents about affordable housing. I think Hyannis has carried more than its fair share and burden for the entire community. I think we should get rid of the 10% requirement for developments downtown. My understanding is the town has been doing a study of that. It makes these projects very difficult to develop. Hyannis has more than enough affordable housing with capital AH. What we need is a mixture of housing in Hyannis. And this is a unique style of housing. It is something where somebody of means can sell a home, kind of downsize their home, and have a condominium style of living instead of having to maintain their property and live in a downtown area. And I think we want these people downtown. They have money to spend in the restaurants, in the shops. People mentioned businesses that have gone out of business downtown. Well, let's bring some people with some means downtown as well. It makes too much common sense. But again, the congestion for police and fire and tractor trailers, all the problems are at the bottom of the hill. Mr. Kirk has got a lot down there. Maybe he should donate that to the town instead of Mr. Bornstein making his property a park. And he can move some of those boats out of there. I don't know how many boat slips he has down there. Between the number of boats that he has in the harbor, the two restaurants, et cetera, I don't know how much parking he needs, but I would like to see somebody do a head count of all of that and see whether or not there's adequate parking. I do know he recently bought a lot so that he can send boats or bring cars out of that area and park them. I think it's either on Pleasant or School Street. I think it's on Pleasant Street where he got a new lot approved. But that creates traffic. Somebody comes down, you got to bring the car back out. So a lot of the congestion down there has to do with Mr. Kirker's business, not Mr. Bornstein's proposal. 29 condominium units, keep that in mind. There was a restaurant there that did breakfast, lunch, and dinner, created way more traffic with road conditions and sidewalks conditions that were terrible. This will be an improvement, and this will help alleviate the congestion down there. And as far as, people saying it's a threat to show the proposal that has the 60 units and the 82 bedrooms, it's not a threat. The question was asked, what's changed? We illustrated what has changed. And what has changed is that project can be built. It's not final. Nobody said it was final. We showed you what we could do with this project. It meets setback requirements, it meets the parking requirements, it meets the density requirements, it meets the lot coverage requirements, it meets the landscaping requirements. So sure, it has to go to site plan review, and yes, it would have to go to Hyannis Main Street Historic District Committee. But you heard the chairwoman say here, 99.9% of those projects get approved. We just have to work with them on materials and colors and make sure that they're happy. So it's not a threat to you to come here and say, here's what's changed, here's how the zoning changes impact this site, and here's what can be done under the current zoning. I don't know anything about a harbor master plan, but again, we are not on the harbor. We're more akin to the zoning districts across the street where the height has been relaxed. And as I stated earlier, our project will actually be less than what is allowed directly across the street as it fronts on South Street. So all in all, regarding follow the process, the regulatory agreement's part of the process. Yes, the zoning has been studied and implemented and looked at, and we are asking for two major forms of relief. Everything else is minor. Everybody kept talking about 19 zoning requests for zoning relief. Half of those can be eliminated by eliminating parking. If we eliminated parking, they'd be complaining that we don't have enough parking. So they want us to meet the zoning when it's to their benefit, and they don't want us to meet the zoning when it's not to their benefit. It's the opponents keep, if we took away those parking spaces, they'd be saying, well, there's not enough parking, but the current zoning requires 29 spaces for the 29 units. We're providing 70. And then they're complaining, well, that's not enough. So, okay, so we've got some out there in the street. if we took those away and eliminated a good half of the requested waivers, they'd be complaining about the lack of parking. So it's like, you can't win with them. The only complaint I can kind of relate to is the issue regarding the height. I understand everybody's concern, but to get, as I stated at the very beginning of this process, to get buildings with this architectural detail, this beautiful, you have to have some density. You can't build these at 2.5 stories. If you want to build them at look around downtown, see what's been going up. Why do you think it's been going up? You've got 10% requirement. That's a difficult way to start right there on a project. Those affordable units cost you a lot of money on a project. It makes it difficult to build economically feasible projects. Then you throw in the details like this, with only 29 units, it really becomes difficult. So we need the height to build this building. Otherwise, we could end up with something, again, that's, I mean, you ride around and look at the apartment complexes, not knocking any of them, they're all nice, but they could be in any other community. This is spectacular. It says, welcome to downtown Hyannis. Maybe somebody coming in on a boat from Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard is going to look and go, geez, I could live there. I don't have to get on a boat to go over to my place. Maybe I can come here and spend some money in Hyannis. Let's take a look around. That will happen. When those buildings go up, they're spectacular. The view from the water, what would you rather see? The view from those beautiful buildings, or Mr. Kirk has got a building there that's like roughly 45 feet for his marine business. Specifically written into the zoning was a little provision that allows him to expand for existing buildings in marina use that are 45 feet high, can be expanded, so he can have higher height, but nobody else should. He can have congestion down at the end of School Street, but nobody else can. I mean, it's all self-interest. It's got nothing to do with our project. It's a beautiful project, and I ask you to support it and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you, Attorney Kenny. Appreciate all that. Now go to the board and go to fact-finding and our questions and comments. Bob, I wanted to start with you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any questions or any real observations. Despite the fact that this is a new petition, and despite the fact there's been some zoning modifications since we voted on the previous proposal, these buildings, however, are exactly the same as the buildings were that we spent 9 or 10 months of an extraordinarily intense investigative process where dozens and dozens of people came in and made public statements and or submitted written statements, and we had site walks on the property, and we had a crane test, none of which naturally has been put before the board tonight. So I think what we ought to do is incorporate the administrative record for the previous proposal as part of the administrative record in this proposal, so that those people who spoke either for or against or whatever the previous time have those remarks memorialized in part of the administrative record here. So I move to incorporate the previous administrative record.
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you both. And all those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. No, great point, Bob. I appreciate that. Definitely a smart move. So obviously, the majority of us took part in the prior hearings, but I wanted to give Matt a chance to dig in a little bit here if you have anything that you'd like to dig into.
Mr. Kenny, thank you. Just a couple of things. So, on the historic waiver question, right? So that's a matter of really, I think, due to the visibility of this building and the fact that it is a showcase, and I do really appreciate the aesthetic of the building. But I think it's important to not denigrate the value of that board, right? So there's two ways to do that. One is either you change their regulations or you change ours. Now, we have the ability, the perceived ability under the regulatory agreement process to exempt you from that requirement. I think what would help the board would be a demonstration of, in fact, that this provision, that this current proposal is in fact identical. And when I use the word identical, I mean identical, right? Identical to what was presented in front of them. Help us make a better, just help us make a better, get a long list.
Yeah, it's identical, except it's one floor less.
But I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, that's not identical. Identical is identical. Not identical is a different, right? If you guys want to come in with a modification of your prior, right, an amendment of your prior application, that's different, right? You guys could carry some of that through. But identical is identical, not identical is not identical.
Okay, well, it was reduced to 4.5 stories in the prior application, so it's identical to what voted down.
Right, so understand that if, and I do understand the importance of the historic district, it's there for a reason. So I think some consensus on that matter would be important, or get rid of the historic district, right? Because what are we doing? Okay, so you guys know how to change regs, like go change regs, right? But the repetitive petition, I think that there could be an argument that this is a repetitive petition. The only thing that prevents me from going down that road is the fact that the regulations have changed. I don't know if there's precedent at the state level this is a unique scenario, right, where you guys have presented something, then the zoning changed dramatically, then you came back, right? So that's a gray area for me, but I could see an argument on either side of that. Okay, the affordable component, I think, is something I have the most issue with here, right? If the intent of the rezoning is to be inclusive, right, inclusionary zoning, and I totally understand your argument, the challenge in developing these and the costs associated with it, but by rights you would be required to do it, and I don't want to create additional environmental justice areas in the town, and by definition, by putting the additional affordable units off-site, you are creating that environmental justice area to a T, right? Look at the AMI requirements, that sort of thing. So you're increasing an environmental justice area. I don't think that was the intent of the original bylaw, right? Again, under the regulatory agreement, we can waive that. I understand. I appreciate the intent. It's an important component. But I think of all the things we're doing tonight, that's the most detrimental because it allows the affordable component to be thrown over there and the not affordable component goes to the nice places in town, right? So take that for what it's worth. The conservation, has this been to conservation? The project has not been to conservation?
Yeah, that project was approved. It has an order of conditions. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Just as a general note, I think this would be challenged. I don't have enough information here in terms of the drainage requirements and otherwise for the building. But looking at the lot coverage, the intensity of the site component here, I do see a potential challenge in terms of the actual drainage installation and the fact that, again, due to the proximity to the water, this is in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, you know, some sort of treatment in the drainage component would be prudent, right? So, and I assume it will be designed that way, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. The site plans here are insufficient to make a determination on that. But to me, I've done a couple things like this. It looks challenging, okay? Building height, I think would be helpful. Number one, amending the record to bring in the administrative record from the previous application would be helpful. But a simple section of the building, a definition of grade and how that grade applies to the current zoning, that would be helpful so we can see how you're measuring the stories, right? I could make an argument that the subterranean parking is in fact a story, right, depending on a grade study, or it is not, right? So let's put that on the table, because if that's the bone of contention, let's just give me a section of the building, of both buildings at their max peak, and show the building height and show the finished grade and that sort of thing. Super helpful, and I think would alleviate a lot of people's concerns about the project. I do think, based on the scale of the buildings, and there would be a smart offering would be some provision for some renewable energy sources here, maybe a requirement of the building code by the time you get to building this. But that's really something to consider, and you've got a lot of roof area, and currently the state's energy plan consists of two things, wind and solar. I would much rather see some solar go around than more wind farms, okay? Positives about the project, you know, I do think a building of this presentation is a great enhancement to the waterfront. It does set a positive precedent in terms of the presentation we're giving to those people who support this economy, right? Those people who come here in the summertime, tourists, people from all over the world who come down here, and to present something of this level of detail and architectural definition are really a trendsetter and would be an exceptional standard for other, for follow-on buildings. Hopefully, the historic district agrees. And to the parking issue, right? So if anyone is tuned into anything in terms of smart growth management, development, those sorts of things, this whole parking thing is really taking a back seat. It used to be the driver of every project, right? You guys, everybody lives around here. Go drive around, right? It's like just parking, it's everywhere, man. Like just park it. I really commend you for doing the subterranean parking. Brilliant. I'm surprised people haven't done it to a greater extent. And given, if you're going to look at this presentation as presented, I would agree with you that because these are units of a certain size, a certain economic scale, I would agree with you that the number, if you were to hire a traffic engineer, the number of trips per day out of the old dockside versus what you would generate from a development like this are not even in the same ballpark, right? The turnovers, you guys know how this works, right? So I don't think that the parking is an issue per se. I really don't feel that's a problem. And again, to be able to create a development of this scale and not be looking at a mile of parking spaces is very, very innovative and really smart, right? And I commend you. Go 2 stories down, right? Put 2 levels of parking down there. You can do it, So, I think there's a lot of positives here, and I think it's a project that I think people are intimidated by because of its the perceived scale of it. But I think when you look at pictures like that, you go, is that what I want to look at? I don't think I would mind, right? I think that what's important is to make sure we manage this regulatory agreement in a way that it is not a free-for-all, right? This is an effort to help where help is needed and not to abuse the privilege because, that's what this board is for, right? So, I like the project. I think there's some nuances here that could be tightened up a little bit. And I think, a number of those issues I just brought up would help in a very clear perspective in terms of, how the building height works. I will caution the board in hindsight, by bringing the original record back into the project, we could create some confusion in terms of what we're looking at tonight. And there's parts of that because you stated that this is the different height, for instance, of what was brought in, talked about previously. Is that correct, Mr. Kennedy?
Well, we started off at 5.5, we went to 4.5 as part of the prior project.
So you might imagine, again, so what I look at is 20 years from now, when somebody in the planning department cracks this open and goes, what were we supposed to do here? I've been there, right? I live it every day. You crack the file up and you go, what was this? Like, what was this? Like, so I would be afraid to muddle this presentation with that only due to the fact, and I understand why that's valuable to you guys because it drags in the historic approval, right? So by association, it drags in the historic approval. I think if you could solve that problem, I would be much more comfortable with moving this forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. That was awesome. Very good. Mary, moving right along.
All set for right now, thank you.
All right, Ray.
Okay, so right now, this phase is fact gathering, and we'll talk about.
Yeah, I would say, right now we'll go, around the board, see what questions, facts we want, and after that, we'll kind of,
Okay.
State where we're at and see if we can close the public hearing.
All right. So, Matt, thanks for making us kind of hitting all the sharp points there. I think that was important, and all the positives. I do have a couple of questions, Mr. Kenny. The first is just because the electric vehicle plug-ins, are they going to be available to the public?
No, they'll be in the, down in the garage.
Okay, because I was confused because that was in the list of things that were going to contribute to the community good. So I was just wanted to double check with you on that one.
If you listen to our government, it does.
The second thing is, and this is just a, I don't know, this is just a what if. How would, we have our great streets proposal spearheaded by our senior planner. What would be the impact if South Street was made two-way on the planning process? Or would that affect how or if would that affect the project?
Wouldn't affect the project at all. And we are providing a 8.5-foot wide multi-purpose pathway along our frontage along South Street. So I think it would fit right in and actually be the pathway will be beneficial if it does become two ways.
Okay. And just to show off for Jim, that's multimodal.
Multimodal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny.
Great use of that word, Ray. Awesome. Bob?
I'm good, thanks.
Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only questions on kind of the fact-finding mission that I have, and it was brought up in the discussions on the previous applications, are related to 310 Barnstable Road. And I know that in the first go-around, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, we never received plans on that because that project and that approval and those plans were not, we're not reviewing the merits of that particular property in that project in this. It's just a matter of the units that get applied to this. Is that correct?
No, we did receive floor plans from that. I believe at the very last hearing, you did receive floor plans for what was proposed, though it is changing some before you tonight.
We received on the last the floor plans on the proposed units that would have been associated with this reg agreement.
Correct. My understanding, my recollection, yes, we had floor plans. We didn't have any elevations or anything to 310 because, as you stated, it wasn't a part of this plan or this proposal, but there were floor plans for the 5 units, I believe, that were being proposed. But I don't believe we've received updated ones.
And I can still ask the applicant questions about that project in general. So my questions are just related directly to 310 on, how many units total is that project, its timeline, its marketing, and kind of the background on that particular project.
Hi, I'm Stu Bornstein, developer. 310's under construction, and we hope to finish it sometime in February. Unfortunately, we can't get electrical switchgear till May, but the units, we'll be able to turn those units over a year ahead of time, probably before even the dockside gets started. We turn them over to the town, 6 units, 5 3s, 1 1, and we've lost 2 units from our original project because we made 5 3-bedrooms. We lost 2 whole units out of our project. So and these are all brand new. They all have their washers and dryers, refrigerators, ice makers, microwaves. These are first-class units. These, just because they're affordable, they got granite counters. They're the best of the best. So they're really, and there's nothing to distinguish them different from any other unit in there.
How many units in 310?
Originally, we started with 30. We're down to 28 now because there's going to be 3 also for that project. So all in, there's 9. So it's like a third of the project has gone affordable with the dockside.
It's great, and those are all 12-month.
Yeah, we only do 12-year leases.
You say 12-month leases.
Right, absolutely, yes. And we've already worked with the housing Mary Wagon up in Yarmouth to start the process because it takes so long. So these will be, if we get approved, we'll turn these over as 3-bedrooms. If not, we just put them back in the 2-bedroom mode and put back our other 2 units. But we're prepared to give it to the town a year ahead of time so they can actually have more affordables before we even get out of the ground probably.
So just to confirm, 30, or so down to 28 units total in 310, but it was originally 30 units.
30
market
units.
Rate, 2 bedrooms.
2 and 1s and 2s.
ones and
But
twos.
because we went into the three-bedroom, and the architects in the audience too, he did a great job. Because we went into three-bedroom, we lost 2 whole units out of our project. But we still kept the integrity of what we agreed to, 3 for the building and 6 for the dockside if we get it.
So that was 310 Barnstable, 3 of those units were for the 10%
Right,
affordable housing requirement for that particular project?
right. And we did not ask for any tax allowances on the property tax. We never do. We pay our fair share of the tax. We never go to the town looking for any abatements, which most developers do. We pay our way. We love Hyannis, we truly do.
And then what are the, and I think you said that we do have those floor plans from previous, but these particular 3-bedroom units being associated with this project, do we know the square footage approximately?
All the units are in the area from, I'm going to guess, 9 to 1,400 feet, 1,300 feet. And I also want to add on, we use gas. It saves the tenant about $150 a month. That most people are putting in electric and the tenant gets stuck with the bill. We put gas in, and we put laundromats in each unit, so he got his own laundry. He doesn't have to go out and pay for it. This is something we do in all our buildings. We take care of the tenant.
Thank you. That was just some of my background questions for that particular, those units.
That was helpful, Tim. I appreciate that. Michael?
Almost set. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So, really, I think at this point, I'd like to go to the board and just ask a few questions. I'd love for each board member to first start with, what I think is the most important question. Do we need more time? Do we feel like we're ready to make a vote on this evening, or do you feel that you need more time? The second question would be, as this application stands, are you in favor of it? Are you leaning in favor of it? And if not, what, if anything, would need to change in the regulatory agreement for you to be in favor of it? And I do this in the spirit of negotiation. This is a negotiation. Doing it this way, I feel, would give the applicant a chance to potentially accept some of our recommendations for changes if we are not in favor of it, and potentially allow us to negotiate an agreement. Okay, so Matt, start with you.
Currently, I have no determination of in favor or against the project. I would like to see a clarification on the building height. Again, like I stated, sections relative to existing grade, proposed grade, and also a grading study of the subterranean floor to make sure that that does not meet an additional story under the building code. And again, a clarification on the regulatory overlap or necessity of the Hyannis Historic District. I would very much appreciate a clear determination as to whether that is allowed to be waived under the regulatory agreement process, or should it be remanded to them for a subsequent review as there were changes? Thank you.
Well, with that being said, I don't think we need to go any further. I mean, obviously, Matt would like some additional information. I want to give Matt that opportunity.
I would suggest we continue.
Understood.
And do not close the public hearing.
Yes, understood. Any other board questions, comments before?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I strongly agree with Matt. I think we should continue and not close the public.
Great, appreciate that. Anybody else? Tim?
Just trying to think if there's any other particular information we should request of the applicant.
Yeah, some
before
homework.
we go and continue the hearing. Now's our chance to ask questions. I still have concerns, and I think Matt opened up some great lines of questioning, particularly around building height and diagrams. And I know we went into a lot of that the first time around. But I think also having that in comparison with the updated zoning, I know that, there has been some setback changes. So to have those diagrams freshened up with that on it, compared to all the previous ones that were using the old base setbacks and parking requirements and everything. And then I think I would just ask the applicant if anything has changed on the 310 Barnstable Road from that, those plans that were filed for the previous application, and any additional information about those units and about the comparable units in that building. Again, not that we are not reviewing that building on its own merits, but just to compare those units and the amenities at that facility with this application. I think that would be great to have in our determination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Bob, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to see the answer to all Matt's questions, and I think all those answers should be included in the record, and we can't do that without continuing it, so I support continuing.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Ray, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've covered the bases on this. I think we need to continue. However, comma, not ad infinitum. I think we've got maybe a tight shot group of questions that need to be addressed, and I know Jim's been scribbling wildly, and I know you've been taking some notes as well, but I'd like to see this wrapped, because we've been to this movie. So I support continuance.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mary, anything else?
I would like, there seems to be some discrepancy between whether we do need to go, whether this should actually go before the Historical Commission or not. I'd like clarification on that with apparently the regulatory change. And just personally, I would love to see something there that's going to help Hyannis improve. I just personally I feel like this is a little bit too much than what's that site can actually hold. And I will just say, just generally, I would love to see something that fits more into the zoning that's already laid out based on the requirements.
Thank you, Mary. Matt, anything else before we look for a motion to continue?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Look for a motion to continue.
Go ahead, Matt.
So moved.
Second?
Oh, someone's got to read it. Just Tim hit the annotated.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to continue the hearing. If the board needs additional information for consideration, the board may continue the motion. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just motion to continue RA 2023.
We need a date certain.
Exactly. So we do need a time and date certain. So I have for you, we do have a meeting on the October 23rd, though there are a number of items that need to be addressed. I don't know if a week's time is sufficient. You guys can have that discussion. The next meeting is November 13th.
Yeah, and we do have items on the agenda for next Monday. Do you know if you have anything for the 13th at this time?
Not at this time.
Yeah, I'd kind of lean towards the 13th. But, of course, Attorney Kenny, that's up to you and your applicant.
To address Matt's thing, Matt, we have done all this with the building inspector. You're new, so you're not aware of it, but everything you have asked has been vetted out with the building department about the garage, the height and all that. So we can probably get that to you the next day or two, just to have it. I'll give it to the board, I'm sorry. As much as we go, we've been going so long, any chance, if we send everything to the board before the end of the week, is there a chance we can get on to the next meeting, even though you have some agenda? I mean, we vetted this out previously, I think 22 meetings. I mean, we've...
Oh, trust me, you don't have to tell me.
It's-
I have no opposition to next Monday, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ray.
I'm looking at Jim, and I'm not sure that we have the capacity.
Jim can handle it.
It's wholly up to the board.
Yeah. No, the agenda next week is not that hefty.
Okay.
So
Yeah, do we know what else is on? Is it some A&Rs or?
it's just one item at this point.
There's one item.
Karen, what do you have next week on the agenda so far? Just an A&R, right?
May I speak to the date just for a moment?
There's
There's a significant
Well,
townwide
hold on.
meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
Okay, there's a citizen petition being presented on the 23rd. It's going to fill Barnstable High School. So I think quite a number of people would not prefer to have the 23rd.
Yeah, I don't know how much that's going to factor in, but, well, it's up to the board. I mean, ultimately, it's either going to be next Monday or November 13th, so. You won't? You won't, okay. Is everybody planning to attend next Monday? Anybody that can't make it next Monday? Let's start with that.
I'm in for
available.
next Monday.
Okay,
On the 23rd or the 13th.
both,
I'm here on both dates.
same. Mary, both, okay. Bobby, looking good for both?
I'm good for both, yeah.
All right, Tim?
I'm good for both.
And Michael, you said you can't do the 13th?
November 13th, yes, I
But
cannot.
you can do
But
next
I'll be-
week.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, then we're going to do next week because we'll have a full board, so, okay?
May I just have a motion to continue to October 23rd at 7 PM here at the Crocker
And
Meeting Room?
Tim
at
just
Town-
mentioned the RA 2023-002.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue RA 2023-002 Dockside Residences, 110 School Street, 115 School Street, to October 23rd at 7 PM.
Perfect, thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Thank you both.
Thank you
Appreciate your
thank you
time.
very much.
Yep, you got it. Okay.
Moving on.
Moving along, general correspondence. Jim, I don't think we had any general correspondence this week.
Nothing outside of the agenda items.
All right. We have one Chapter 91 notice, 183 Bay Street, Barnstable, Baselli, install, maintain, expansion of float. Jim, you want to do a quick LCP update?
Sure, I know it's late.
Emphasis on the quick.
Yeah, understood. Next meeting, November 30th, we'll be discussing land use and housing. We've had a great first session with the committee.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. And we'll look now for approval of minutes, approval of the September 11th, 2023 draft minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Future meetings, October 23rd, 7 PM, and November 13th, 7 PM. Anything before we adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
That was Mary.
think you got
Mary
Mary
with a
and Bob
second
on
by
second.
Bob. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Meeting adjourned.